You're listening to Shore Solutions, the podcast, where our expert consulting team steps behind the mic to share some of the strategies and solutions we implement for aesthetic practices nationwide. With decades of combined experience running and coaching aesthetic and medical practices, we bring you the guidance that strengthens operations, elevates profitability, and supports long-term growth. This is where solutions begin.
Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Shore Solutions, the podcast. My name is Christian DeVoe, and I will be your host for this episode. And today I have the pleasure and the honor to be joined by no one else but my business partner and our Director of Client Development, Ana Suarez.
Thank you so much, Christian. That's such a nice introduction. I'm glad to be here and just getting our conversation started.
All right, and today's conversation is going to be very cool. We're going to be talking about one of the biggest things that we notice across all of our clients is HR, and specifically about setting expectations before you hire that next person, that next role that is going to be helping you in your practice. So with that being said, Ana, she is an HR expert. She has all these years of experience hiring for other businesses and also for our clients. So Ana, with all of your experience and what you notice on the day-to-day working with the clients, can you start talking about maybe what triggers that decision initially? Why does a practice owner decide to hire somebody?
Yes, and that's a great question, Christian. We do see a lot of different situations with the practice owners or practice administrators that we work with. And basically, most practices, they hire reactively. They don't really hire strategically. So most hiring problems are not people problems. They are actually clarity problems. Pretty much what that means is that it's very reactive. They feel like everything is really busy. Maybe they have a lot of new patients coming in, or maybe they even started their practice with a very small team. And so as things get busier, they immediately go like, okay, I need to hire. I need to go and hire. But you have to keep in mind that, yes, it could be because they're busy and it's a smaller team, but it could also be because the team is not well structured. And so roles are not really defined, expectations are not clear. And so that's when the whole pressure comes up where it's like, okay, we need help. I need to get this off my plate.
Yeah, that's something that I also notice. It's very reactive, and there is a big difference between reacting to something and taking a conscious decision about what needs to be done. That's why before you even start doing that job description or doing that job post, you need to have clarity of what your core problem is. What is the core problem that you're trying to solve in your practice? Is it that you as an owner are too busy at this point and you really need somebody to take off certain things off your plate? Or is it that maybe you're not having a good conversion rate of, leads to patients? So you need somebody new on the phone answering your phone calls. Is that your next hire? Maybe somebody quit and now you have to replace that person. So it's very important to not be reactive, but be very conscious about what you're about to do before you even write down that job description. You got to understand your problem correctly.
Yes, Christian, that's another great point, because if the owners don't take the time to think about what is needed for that specific position or for the practice, in general, when they feel the stress, when they feel busy and there's a lot going on, there needs to be a time where they take a step back and they start reflecting, what exactly do I need for my practice? And what would that position look like for the next hire? And so that would entail, thinking about what are the requirements, like what is the type of experience that this person needs to have, what type of skills should they bring to the table, and also the expectations, because many practices don't do that. And so if they don't do that, the other thing that happens too is that they will end up with a wrong hire. They will end up with the wrong person for the position, for the job. And also the hiring cycles, the interviewing process, the recruiting process, it gets even longer than what it needs to be, because when they're doing the interviews, they don't really have that clarity of what it is that they're looking for, that they need for this role.
That's absolutely true, Ana. And it's very interesting what you're saying. And there is always something that we ask our clients: are you busy or are you understaffed? Because there is a big difference between those two, right? And to me, being busy is you have all these things to do, but is it really what is going to move the needle in your business? Or are you understaffed? Meaning, are you doing the things that you're supposed to do, but you need the next person to continue to grow? So that's where the big difference lies. Because if you're trying to grow as a business, you're making conscious decisions. You understand what your core problem is, and that takes you to the next level, which is what am I ready to let go of? Because if there is something that you need to let go of to be able to focus on what you need to do as a business owner, then you definitely want to delegate that so you have more available time to focus on higher level things. With that being said, Anna, is there some sort of framework or some sort of model that our listeners can use before they make that next hire?
Yes, we actually have a framework that we use with our clients, and pretty much it's called Clear Hire. And it's a guide to know what to do before even writing the job description and putting the job ad out there in the different recruiting platforms, whether that's Indeed or LinkedIn. But basically, it's like I said, it's Clear Hire. And the C, it stands for core problem. So basically, kind of like what we have been saying, what specific problem, what specific issues is this person in this specific role is going to be solving for me, is going to be doing for me? And also taking a look at the big pictures, right? Because if you already have someone that does something very similar to it, you have to be specific about the specific person's responsibilities and expectations. So that's what the C stands for. Then we move on to the L for clear, right? And that will be level of ownership. So this is really important because you have to be clear on what are the decisions this specific role and person in that role is going to be able to make without even getting the manager involved. That way they'll know how much authority they have and what it is that they can do by themselves. And then what it is that they actually need to wait for their manager or maybe like another colleague to make that decision or to move forward with something. And just setting that up, it clears things up a lot. It's funny because sometimes people think like, okay, I have this task to do. And then let's say there's like two team members working on that task. But if they don't really know who's the owner of that task, then usually it doesn't get done because one person is thinking that the other person is going to get it done. And then the other person is thinking that, no, that's going to be someone else getting it done. So just having that clarity, who's owning the task, and what it is that they have to do is a huge help.
Right. And what if they all work on it, Anna? Then all of them did it and they wasted all this time when one person who, could have done it by themselves. So very, very important what you're saying, having that clarity. And then, of course, the next thing after what you were saying, Anna, would be expectations, right? That would be the E in clear. With expectations, very, very important that you have that proper job description of everything that they're going to be doing in your business. When you're doing the job post, you could have something more general, but the moment that you have that interview with that person, the moment that you're doing that job offer, you have to give them all the details about their role. And there should be always a caveat, other duties as assigned. So they cannot say that, I wasn't told about this specific thing. No, there are going to be other duties as assigned, but they're all going to be within that role that I need you for. I'll give you an example. May you hire somebody for your front desk, your director of first impression, and you are giving them, a little bit of information about what the role is going to be. They're going to answer the phone calls. They're going to call the patients, confirm appointments. But maybe you just leave other duties as assigned because maybe later down the line, you're going to have a list of all these older patients that haven't been to your practice for a while. So you're going to give them a list to call those patients, even though that wasn't in the job description. It's still part of the role, to try to get patients to a practice, and it's still going to be under that other duties as assigned. So making sure that you're as detailed as you can be so that there are no surprises, but then also make sure that whatever additional roles you're going to give them are going to be under what their title is. Don't hire somebody for a director first impression position and then give them a management responsibility over other team members, because that would be a different title and role. So very important that whatever other duties are within their scope. Very, very important.
So Christian, yeah, those are all great points. And something to keep in mind for the expectations. many practice owners or practice administrators, they hire the person, but then they completely forget about the 90 days mark, or like even like a 6-month mark. And so part of that reflection and thinking, even before we write a job description and we post it out there, it entails thinking, what is the expectation, not only for the first 30 days of this person in this role, but like in 3 months, 6 months, a year, because that will provide clarity to the employee. And it would also provide help. Like the manager won't have to be micromanaging all the time, because from the start, the expectations have been set, they have been explained, conversations have happened. And so now everybody's on the same page and everybody understands what this new employee needs to do. And so that alleviates a lot of frustration, because unclear expectations turn good employees into frustrated employees. So that's why it's really important to have the clear expectations, the clear responsibilities, and having those ongoing conversations. Training is very important. So making sure that, again, at the 30-day mark, we regroup with this person that just started in the new role, and we coach them, we answer questions that they may have, and then we update or set new expectations for the 3-month mark, and then the 6 months, and so on. And so what that does, it just helps you to build that relationship, to adjust expectations where needed, or to address things that will come up, and it will set the employee for success instead of failure. We don't want them to get frustrated. We want them to know what it is that they have to do. So just having that in mind is very important.
I love that. And that's what we always say. You got to have PPP that are CCC. You got to have protocols, procedures, and policies that are clear, concise, and consistent. And you got to have that before you even make that first hire, right? So all of these things that we're talking about are actually way before you even do that job post, right? So we're talking about making sure that you have a clear expectation of what they need to do. You have that clear job description. You understand that you're going to be doing a 30-day review, a 60-day review, a 90-day review. And then during those reviews, always follow a pattern of setting goals. People need to have goals in any organization. And it's very important that you make sure that they are SMART goals and stretch goals. A SMART goal is specific, is measurable, it's achievable, it's realistic, and it's time-bound. Those are SMART goals. And then you have the stretch goals, which are goals that you're shooting above and beyond what the SMART goal is. Meaning, I'm going to try to shoot for the sun and maybe I'll get to the moon or the stars, right? But you're going to get forward. You're going to move forward. You're going to get to that next level. So you got to have those goals with your employees. You got to help them get there. And then finally, you're going to have that A in clear, which is accountability. And then that's basically making sure that whatever responsibility they're accountable for, that whenever you need to find out what's going on with the leads, you come to that person, that front desk, and you ask them for, what are the metrics? Show me the numbers, show me the facts, right? You don't want to have just somebody there and, wasting the day away without actually getting some work done. You want to have somebody that's going to help you move your business forward. Is that all saying that Jay has of not to hire a warm body, because you're going to be taking the heat from that warm body. That's all you're going to be getting from them. Just a warm seat. You want to hire somebody that is going to want to work in whatever position you assign them to be, and then they're going to be doing, going above and beyond to help you grow your business. So that's for the accountability part. And then finally, you got to give them that R, which is resources in that clear framework, right? Resources, where they are, very simply put, is systems, tools, training. These are things that you got to have in place way before they come on board with you. You got to have a training plan in place of how you're going to help that employee know all the different things that they need to know to succeed at their role. And you as a business owner or as a person who is hiring should know those things so you can teach them. And if you don't know those things, you got to hire somebody to help you do it. That's where consultants like us come in, where we do training for our team, where we come into a practice and we help them with coaching. We help them with training when it comes to fund skills, sales training, practice management training. We basically train in all the different positions and we help them get to a point where they're comfortable to be able to exceed expectations in that role. So very important, once again, to kind of recap it all together, you got to have clear hiring. To summarize it would be C, understand your core problem. You have to have a level of ownership, understand what that person is going to be allowed to do. You got to have clear expectations from day one. You got to have accountability metrics and goals to help them be able to get to the level where you want them to be. And then you got to have the resources ready to go so they can be trained, know how to use those tools, and understand your policies, procedures, and protocols so that they are not going to have any room for failure. You're going to help them succeed.
We have so many clients that come to us and they're like, well, we hired this new person and they don't know what they're doing. They're asking questions all the time. I don't know if they're going to work out. And then we said, well, wait a minute. Do they have a job description, a specific job description, not a vague general type of job description? And many times they're like, well, no, they don't have one. Or, oh, yeah, the job description that we use is very general because it's the same one that we used last time that we were hiring for this position. And we're like, well, you need to stop and think about that because things are always changing in your business, in your practice. And so are we sure that we spelled out every single thing that the person needs to do in this role? And did we also set the expectations? And many times that's not really the case. We also have other, practice administrators or business owners, and they tell us, well, we're just like training as we go. But, training as you go usually means confusion as you go.
You're learning from your mistakes as you go because you're going to make a lot of mistakes.
Exactly. And that creates anxiety. Then the employee starts getting overwhelmed because they're not sure what it is that I have to do. How do I have to do it? And so all of that could have been prevented if, we would have, someone would have taken the time to sit there and think about how is this position supporting the practice as a whole? Because it's important to know, as a business owner, you have to know who do you already have on your team, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and so what it is that we need for that next hire that is going to help us to grow long term, kind of like hiring for capacity instead of just like hiring out of like necessity. We also get those situations as well. Christian, I'm sure that, you can share some stories about that. But we have so many times where clients come to us and they're like, okay, we need to do hiring. I need help. When we speak with them, it's not that they even need to do hiring. It's that they don't really have things organized and structured, or maybe they don't have the necessary processes and protocols to make sure that the people that they do have, that they're being effective at their jobs and that they're going about it very organized. Christian, do you have some examples that you've had with some of the clients as well, or that you've heard in some of our meetings?
Oh, many. I could go all day, Anna. But honestly, it's at least for the last client that we have been working with have had that issue where their practice has grown so much. They have several locations. And what ends up happening once you have several locations is that whatever you didn't fix from that first location is going to continue to happen. So before you open your second and third location, you got to make sure you get the first one right. And that's what happened to them. They made certain mistakes when it came to hiring people or maybe setting those expectations, what those staff members were supposed to do, specifically speaking about how to convert. And maybe they didn't understand at the time what the full magnitude of being a director of first impressions meant. They just focus on the transactional call, right? They're just trying to schedule a call. And now they need help improving their sales skills and being able to get their staff to actually convert and not being afraid of selling. And there's a lot of stigma about that word selling, but I'm not going to get into that right now. But the point is, yes, we see it in many of our clients. We see it in many people out there in the industry. But what's very important before we get into any details is, where are you? Are you going to open a practice? Because then you want to make sure that you have the right support from the very beginning. And listening to this podcast is going to give you some ideas of what you need to be doing right now before you even hire that first person. So you're going to get it right from the beginning. But if you have been open for several years now and you already see that there are HR issues in your team, what's that next step? And that's what I would say. You need to hire someone that will come in and do an evaluation, a consultant. You definitely want to have the right guidance. So that's where consultants like us come in, because we have the experience. several of our team members have actually owned a practice. They were very successful at it, and they were multimillionaire practices, and they were able to learn and make the mistakes that many of you will make unless you have somebody like them, like our team members here, who actually understand those problems, and they can see it from a mile away, and they can let you know those red flags that you need to look out for and what to avoid to make sure that you hire the right person. With that being said, for someone who is running a practice already and has issues with their staff, making sure that you actually have, once again, the right team on board. So you should find somebody who's going to help you with those things that you need help with, and that they're going to be good at it because that's what they love to do. So start with the things that you need, to get rid of, because maybe you don't want to do them anymore, and delegate them to someone else.
So Christian, I know that we have also seen this situation where, like you said, we help our clients to hire, whether that is the medical assistant, the director of first impressions, the patient care coordinator, practice administrator, you name it, we can get it done. So a really great candidate is hired. They start, they're very excited about their job, and they're very talented. They met the requirements, the experience, the skills. However, we can see them as time goes on without that proper structure that we have been talking about here, that they start getting disengaged. They start not producing the results that are expected. And so even though they're good, they're talented, they still fail in that type of environment. Could you speak a little bit more about that and some of the reasons why even someone that is talented, experienced, and skilled will fail in this type of environment where there's no processes in like a structure, like a solid structure in place?
Man, that's such a great question. I always think of this analogy, and is when you take a fish of any kind, if you put that fish in a small pond, they're going to grow, but they're not going to grow that much compared to putting that same fish in the ocean, unless they get eaten by another fish. But let's assume that they survive, they're going to grow a lot more, right? That's biology right there. And we humans are not different. We might be talented, we might be very skillful, but if you put a human being into a role, number one, where they're not necessarily happy at, maybe they are not good at those things, it's a stretch for them. And you put them in that small pond, it's going to be very difficult for them to grow and to thrive. But if you got the right person and you put it in the right environment where they excel, where they love what they do, they're going to have a whole ocean of opportunity for them to grow and to become better and to get to that next level. And you nourish those things that they do well. I understand that maybe, trying to improve the things that are difficult for your staff is what many people try to do. And I have seen that time and time again. You have somebody that you're training to answer the phone, and they don't do a good job. After all the training, they don't seem to capture what you're trying to do, which is improve your patient experience. They are still very transactional. They might improve certain things here and there, but they don't thrive in it. For them, that's a pond. Maybe they're very good at other things that you are not, taking advantage of. So understanding who the person is, what are their skills, and then putting them in the right role where they're going to grow, where they're going to be in that ocean of opportunity to be their best self. When you talk to me about finance, that's my ocean. I can talk about finance all day. I can, look at a P&L like an architect looks at a blueprint. Jay always uses that comparison. But I have learned that from him because he trained me, and that was something that I loved, and he nourished that. He focused me in that direction because he noticed, okay, this is what he's good at. I'm going to help him get even better. So that's what you need to do with your team. Nourish what it is that they're good at, and then help them get to a next level. And if you have to replace somebody because they are not in the right role and you cannot find a role for them in your practice where they will excel, you have to let them go. You got to fire quick and then hire slow. Go through the process that we have been talking about. And then once you hire that right person and they have the right skills and they're happy doing that specific thing, now you can help them grow, and they will grow a lot because they're in that ocean of opportunity.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important that even from the start, like even before, we sit down to do that job description or we post it out there, that we take the time as practice owners, practice administrators, we take the time to identify what type of skills, what type of experience is needed for the position that I'm needing for my practice, right? And then when you are meeting with those candidates, because there's going to be multiple candidates coming and interviewing for that position, you're able to identify, well, they have plenty of experience, let's say with Excel or financials. However, the position for director of first impressions is all about building the experience and building relationships and being very responsive right away. So maybe those skills that this candidate has, they're not a good match for this position, but maybe they're a great match for some other position that you may need later on. And so if we're able to identify those clearly, we will be able to know, okay, this is the candidate, this is a person that I'm looking for, or no, this is not that person. And like Christian said, once you are placed in a position where you feel excited about your role and your employee is happy to come to work, then they excel and they stay motivated and engaged. And it's very helpful. So the other thing to keep in mind, if you can define success for this role that you're looking to hire, your new employee, your new hire, they won't be able to achieve it because they don't really know what that will look like. If you don't know what success looks like for any of your roles in the practice, then how will your employees know? So you first have to paint that picture. You first have to have everything organized and everything in place so that when someone comes in, they know exactly what is needed from them, what the expectations are, and how they're going to be successful if they do A, B, and C. So just keeping that in mind saves a lot of frustration, a lot of time and money.
Absolutely. Anna, it's been great doing this episode with you. And I always love to keep the best for last. I would love to ask you, Anna, if you can give us some gold nuggets, some final thoughts on what are the next steps for those business owners out there, because it's always fun to listen to the podcast and I find that people fall into this, and I do that myself. I have noticed it in myself too, where you listen to a podcast about a specific topic and you listen to many podcasts about that specific topic. And at the end, things don't necessarily change because you don't take action. What are give me 2, maybe 3 action points that I can take if I was a business owner out there listening to this podcast? What should I do before I make that next hire? Or how can I ensure that next hire is going to be the right person?
Yes, some action items, just making sure that to take a step back. I know we're all busy, there's a lot going on, but the way you have to think about it, if you put all of this time up front before you even start the hiring process, it's going to save you a lot of time and headaches later on. So just taking a step back and thinking about, what it is that I need for, the next hire or the next position that I'm looking for, right? And again, writing down those responsibilities, the expectations for the role, and what success will look like for that specific position. If you are not looking to hire right now, then just also taking a step back and thinking about your team. Do we have a clear job description for all of the positions? Do we know what are the expectations? Have we communicated, how everyone is being measured, the metrics, the key performance indicators for each of the positions? Because that's just going to provide clarity to each of your employees about what it is that they have to achieve. What are the goals? What are the expectations? So just doing that is going to be helpful. And if that's something that you find that you haven't done or that you don't have the time to do it, like Christian mentioned, you can always reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to help you with that assessment evaluation process, or even writing the job descriptions or asking you the questions that need to be asked so that we find out what it is that is needed, and then just put it in writing and help you either post a job or just doing the entire hiring process, which is like a whole new thing by itself. So
take a moment, take a step back and think. I love that. Now, just for our audience out there, if you stayed all the way to the end of this episode, we're going to be offering something complimentary to you. And it's if you send us your job description for that next post, we'll take a look at it and we'll give you our feedback so that you can make sure that it's appropriate and that it has everything that it needs to have for making sure that you qualify and that you filter correctly for that next hire. And if you want any additional help, we can talk about that too. We offer free consults for that. So with that being said, thank you everyone for listening. And thank you, Anna, for doing this episode with me. So it's great to have a nice conversation with you. And I hope that our listeners were able to find some good golden nuggets here and take them and run with them and become successful in their practice.
Thank you, Christian. It has been fun. It is a pleasure, and happy hiring.
Yeah, happy hiring, everybody. Good luck and God bless.
Before you go, new episodes are released every 2 weeks, offering perspective on the decisions, systems, and leadership behind well-run practices. For continued insight between episodes, follow us on social media at Shore Solutions. This is Shore Solutions, the podcast.